5,000 years ago, this ancient civilization rose along the Indus River, rivaling the empires of Egypt and Mesopotamia. We actually knew very little about them until the 1920s, when archaeologists finally excavated two of their most significant sites, Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. Looking at this map, their geographic footprint is immense. Their territory stretched from the Makran coast near the Pakistan-Iran border, all the way east to western Uttar Pradesh, and far north into Afghanistan. This vast region functioned as a highly organized cultural network, maintaining a consistent identity across a territory larger than many modern nations. To understand how they built such an empire, we have to look back to the early Harappan phase, starting around 3500 BC, when people lived in small Neolithic farming communities. This fertile river landscape provided the catalyst for their growth. By developing better agricultural technology to exploit the rich alluvium of the Indus Plains, these early communities generated massive food surpluses. When an entire population doesn't have to spend its time hunting or farming, society diversifies. That surplus food maintained an emerging class of non-agricultural specialists, like administrators and artisans. Mastering their environment directly funded their evolution. The surplus wealth allowed them to transition from simple mud structures into the sophisticated, sprawling brick cities of the mature Harappan phase. By 2600 BC, the mature Harappan phase was fully underway, bringing with it a level of standardized town planning that no other contemporary civilization possessed. Almost all major settlements were split into two distinct zones. You can see the remnants of the raised western citadel here, which likely functioned as an administrative and ritual center, separated from the lower residential town to the east. From this vantage point, their strict urban blueprint is obvious. The streets form a precise grid, intersecting at perfect right angles, and the buildings were constructed using uniformly sized kiln-burnt bricks across different cities. Beneath these streets lay their most impressive engineering feats. They built deep private wells for fresh water and an incredibly complex subterranean drainage system that connected individual houses to main street sewers. While we have yet to find a royal palace or a king's tomb, this extreme civic uniformity suggests a highly centralized authority managed these populations according to a single master plan. The sheer scale of these cities required a massive logistical engine. Urban populations relied heavily on surrounding rural villages to supply daily food, while city craftsmen needed vast markets to sell their finished goods. This massive brick-lined dockyard structure at Lothal proves their reach extended far beyond the mainland. They built coastal outposts strictly to manage their international maritime cargo. Their specialized artisan workshops required raw materials that simply weren't available locally. They established trade routes to import copper from Rajasthan, gold from Karnataka, and precious lapis lazuli from the deep mines of Afghanistan. These goods flowed directly to Mesopotamian cities like Susa and Ur. Inscriptions from this region detail a bustling import trade of ivory, pearls, and ebony, coming from a land they called Meluha, the Harappan Empire. This immense accumulation of wealth stratified their society. Excavations at Harappa reveal stark housing differences, contrasting large, multi-room estates with cramped barrack-style quarters meant for laborers. Commerce provided the mechanism for their expansion. Through these intricate trade networks, the Harappans exported their culture and influence across the ancient globalized world. Despite the physical evidence of their wealth and organization, we face a massive archaeological wall. We still cannot read their writing. We have to rely on their art to infer who they were. This stone sculpture, often called the Priest King, features a precise trefoil pattern on his robe, indicating specific aesthetics and status among their elite class. They were advanced metallurgists. This small bronze figurine of a dancing girl, adorned with multiple arm bangles, hints at a vibrant cultural life full of personal decoration and artistry. Their religious practices likely centered on animism. Thousands of recovered terracotta figurines show women adorned with heavy jewelry and fan-shaped headdresses, pointing toward the widespread worship of a mother goddess and an inherent reverence for trees and nature. This particular seal is their most debated artifact. It depicts a central figure with a horned headdress sitting in a yogic posture, surrounded by animals, leading some scholars to identify him as a proto-Shiva deity. Look at the top edge of the seal. These characters appear on pottery, tools, and thousands of other artifacts, yet they yield no answers. Their meaning remains entirely locked in the past. Without a Rosetta Stone to decipher their script, we cannot read their names, their laws, or their prayers. These artifacts stand alone as the mute witnesses to a profoundly spiritual society. Over centuries, these once bustling brick streets slowly emptied out, turning to quiet dust as the harsh environment shifted. Around 1900 BC, the late Harappan phase began. For decades, theorists claimed these cities were destroyed by invading Aryans from the northwest. A closer analysis of the physical data has completely dismantled that theory. The true collapse actually came from the Earth itself. Severe tectonic activity raised the level of the lower Indus floodplains, blocking the river's path to the sea, triggering catastrophic floods that swallowed cities like Mohenjo-daro. For the cities that escaped the floods, the climate delivered a second blow. Sweeping arid conditions dried up the crucial Ghaggar-Hakra river system, permanently collapsing the agricultural surplus that sustained their dense populations. South Asia's greatest early empire succumbed to a prolonged environmental crisis, far removed from the battlefield. However, it's a historical misconception to say the Harappans simply went extinct when their infrastructure failed. As the large cities became uninhabitable, the population decentralized. They migrated south toward Gujarat and east into central India, gradually merging with smaller, rural Chalcolithic communities. Looking at these desolate foundations blending back into the earth, the contrast is sharp. The grand, standardized urban centers were replaced by a fragmented, scattered rural existence. Their magnificent brick cities did eventually crumble, yet the people who walked away carried their agricultural knowledge, metallurgy, and their craftsmanship with them, planting the seeds that would shape the future of the Indian subcontinent.